Fair point.
All right, we're streaming. We're waiting for Connect.
Wait.
All
We
right.
gotta wait.
We're go.
It's
It's
12:40.
right
Yep, we're on.
Oh, we gotta wait for this.
No,
All right.
for anything, you're good.
Here we are, back at the water cooler. This is Saturday, September 5th.
First weekend of September already, Joe.
First
Crazy.
weekend of September.
Crazy.
Summer's flown right by.
Mm.
All right, so you want to get into some ports there, Mark?
You want to start with the NFL?
I think we should start with the NBA. The NFL hasn't started yet. We'll go into the NFL.
Sure.
So last night, as many of you probably saw, the Lakers just got swept by the Rockets, 112-97, and I don't really understand how. I think the Lakers, when they're at their best, are the best team in the NBA. But it seems like this is the second time they've done this. They did it game one with the Trailblazers. You remember 2 weeks ago where they got killed by the Trailblazers week one.
And then they quickly
quickly
steamroll.
came back and were like, okay, now we're going to go on a 4-game run. You know, and I expect them to do it this time. I think the Rockets are a good team, and I think this has potential to go into game 6 or 7, but they couldn't stop James Harden, 36 points. Davis had a good game. LeBron, it was all right, 20 points. I mean, I don't think the Lakers will play like that again. I think their defense is going to play a lot better, and I think their offense will for sure play a lot better. I mean, 97 points out of the Lakers.
Almost seems like it could have been like a feeling out process, kind of like the
Yeah.
opening series in football. The defense is like, okay, let's see what they're all about.
Well, I think that they were so, like, when they played when they were on such a roll when they were playing the Trailblazers, and now the Rockets are a little better team than the Trailblazers were. They're not coming in as hot as the Trailblazers were, but they're a little better team, and I think the Lakers, now that they've got the feel and they know what the Rockets are going to try to do, they're going to try to come in hard with James Harden. James Harden's going to play good defense. He's going to try, and I expect the Lakers to bounce back and probably win 2 or 3 in a row.
Now the game 2 will be, is that Sunday then? Or?
Yeah, that will be on Sunday. Yeah, tonight we have Raptors, Celtics, Nuggets, Clippers, but we'll get to that in a second. Yesterday also, the Milwaukee Bucks were the best regular season team in the NBA and are now down 3-0 in the series against the Miami Heat.
Crazy.
Giannis Antetokounmpo, supposed to be this regular season MVP, crazy guy, whatever. I think he had 18 points last night. Game 1, Jimmy Butler drops 40. Okay. Game 2, Jimmy Butler only drops like 15, but the rest of the team does really good, and he plays amazing defense and has a lot of, assists, and he's getting the ball to players, and he's got the winning shot. In Game 3, Jimmy Butler drops 30. So I think they haven't found an answer for Jimmy Butler, and I think Game 2 was maybe a little worse than Game 3 just because the Bucks realistically should have won that game.
Mm-hmm.
It was just that Giannis came in and he heard the criticism from Game 1 because it was like, you saw this guy, Jimmy Butler, was going crazy, dropping 40 points. Why aren't you covering him? You're supposed to be this all-world defensive player, Giannis, this defensive player of the year. Why aren't you covering Jimmy Butler if you know they can't stop him? So he heard that, and he was like, okay, Game 2, I am not going to let Jimmy Butler go crazy. All right, so Giannis was supposed to be on another guy, I don't know who, and this was the shot to win the game by Jimmy Butler, and Giannis goes over and tries to double-team him. Well, while Giannis is doing that, he fouls Jimmy Butler.
Nice.
So Jimmy Butler gets 3 from the free throw line and wins the game, okay? And it was one of those fouls where it was like you're going to see other players say, well, back in my day, they would have just been like...
Is it one of those where he jumped into the guy?
Yeah, I think
that should be a technical foul. You would end all that right now.
It was a technical. It was a technical. It wasn't like he didn't slap him or anything, but I believe it was Jimmy Butler was going up, and as he was coming down for making the shot, Giannis ran into him on accident.
It seems like that's made its way into college the last few years, where guy goes up for a 3 and he leans into the guy. To me, that's a technical foul, and then you end that right there.
It's and then Jimmy Butler made the shot that won the game, and then made another, and then they won, and Giannis was just kind of and Giannis got a lot of heat. And then I understand where Giannis is coming from, because I was watching another podcast, and they were basically saying, like most young kids now, and most, adults in their 20s, they live on social media, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure Giannis heard all of the negativity and all of the things against him saying, you're this defensive player of the year candidate. Why are you not covering Jimmy Butler when he dropped 40 points? And he just won Defensive Player of the Year, I think.
Right.
Why are you not covering Jimmy Butler?
Yeah.
You know, he's ripping you guys apart. Why weren't you on him? So he's probably thinking to himself, look, Jimmy Butler's only had 13 this game, but if he gets the shot that's going to win the game, I'm going to be right there covering him. Okay, I'm not going to let him do this. And he came off, and I respect Giannis for saying, you know what? This is their best player on Miami.
You can't let their best player beat you. You gotta dare somebody else to do it.
It was like the game that Luka Doncic made his game-winning shot, and everyone was like, "Why wasn't Kawhi Leonard on him?"
Mm-hmm.
Okay, everyone in the building knew that ball was going to Luka Doncic. Why don't you put your best defender, or at least Paul George, on him? What are you doing? You know, you knew what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but yeah, I mean that's my take on that series, and I just think
it's hard to believe, man.
How
3-0 hole.
Yeah, how terrible would it be if the Bucks, that are the best regular season team, get swept by the Heat?
Not even make the conference final.
Not even make the conference final. I mean, that would be the second time in a row where they've been the best regular season team. Because last year, they were the best regular season team in their division because the Warriors had that amazing run last year.
Right.
But it was the same thing. Bucks were supposed to. They were going to run right over the Raptors in the conference finals, and look what happened. The Raptors ended up, kicking their ass.
What a
right?
run that was for them last year.
Yeah. The Raptors were great. Kawhi in the playoffs was sensational.
Yeah.
But I mean, is it just me, or do the Bucks kind of seem like the Colts for the first part of the 2000s, the first decade?
Yeah.
Where it was like they were the best regular season team in the AFC. It was them and the Patriots, right? Just
it seemed like it was their destiny every year to go in the Foxborough and lose.
Every year they just couldn't get over the hump, and it was like. And is Giannis Peyton Manning?
Yeah.
Is he putting up really good numbers, but then all of a sudden in the playoffs, it's kind of like, all right, he's still good, but he doesn't have that, like Kawhi and LeBron James have clutch factors. Like, they're clutch players.
Right.
Like, Luka showed that he's a clutch player. I don't think Giannis has that clutch gene in him yet. I think he could get it, but he just doesn't have it yet. Like, like Chris Paul was clutch this year, okay? But Giannis in the playoffs, he just hasn't been, And you remember all those years? I think it was Manning with the Colts. They won at least 12 games, like 8 years in a row or something.
Bye and,
yeah. 8 years in a row there, more, okay? Because their run started, they drafted Manning in 1998. They didn't become good until 1999 because his first year they were 3-13, and then they went 13-3 the next year.
Yep.
And Manning left, and I think he got injured in 2010. And then he left in 2011. So you're talking about an 11-year run where they were at least winning 10 games every year. It was at least 10 games. So they were probably within that stretch. Next to the Patriots in the AFC, they were the best regular season team in the NFL.
And he took them to did he get the 2 Super Bowls in Indy?
No, he got one in Indy.
They got bombed, and then he went to Denver. They got bombed against Seattle, and then
Well, it was he's been to 4 because he won his first one versus the Bears.
Right.
You remember when Devin Hester returned that one to start the game off? Yep. So he won that one versus the Bears.
It was a monsoon that whole game.
That was 2006. Took him 3 years to get back. 2009, they go and they lost to the Saints. Remember, because Manning threw the pick 6, which cost him the game, and then in 2013, that was when they had that historical offense, and Manning shattered every record, and they just got killed by the Seahawks. And then it was 2015 that they went back, and that's when they beat the Panthers.
Scam Newton.
Yeah. But I mean, like I said, is that it? Because you're thinking 10 years of greatness in the regular season, you got 2 appearances to show for it.
Right, and the problem with that is nobody's going to remember about
No one's going to remember that.
They remember what you did in the playoffs.
Yeah. It's like no one's going to remember that Giannis was, if he loses this right here, no one's going to remember that he went 53 in in 17 in the regular season.
And what's his contract status? Is he due for a payday?
This is his last year.
Yeah.
He's got to get paid this year. Okay, and there's speculations that Milwaukee possibly, he may be out of their price range because I think they've already paid Chris Middleton. And, he might be out of their price range, and they're talking about he might possibly go to the Warriors, or the dream would be him to go to the Lakers, but they just can't pay for him.
That'd be a shame for Milwaukee. If they move him, they're starting over.
Oh, yeah, they have to. Well, I think the Lakers, they can't possibly pay him, Anthony Davis, and LeBron James. But they're looking at either because they're going to trade him, Milwaukee. They would have to trade him, and they're saying that because the Warriors have such a high pick because they were so bad this year that they move that and another pick and then another pick from next year and the year after that, and they get Giannis.
Isn't that beautiful? We talked about that a few weeks ago. The whole draft lottery thing instead of whoever has the worst record. Mm-hmm. It's like, so they have an off here, right? They had been in 5 straight NBA finals. I think they won 3 of them. They have Steph Curry coming back healthy next year. Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. They got their big 3 back. Yeah. Oh, here you go. Here's number 1. Like, really, NBA?
Yeah.
Come on. That's a huge turnoff.
Well, but then I guess you could say the same thing about the NFL with the Niners, because if you really look at the Niners, you knew if Jimmy Garoppolo stayed healthy, they would have been a good team. Mm-hmm. Because when he was in, once they traded for him in 2017, they won 6 straight games.
Right.
Okay? 2018, they come in, and I believe they were 2-1 with him, and then he tears his ACL.
Right.
Because they lost the Vikings week 1, real close game, and then they won two games. They kicked the Lions' ass. And then I believe they beat the Steelers. That never happens. Yeah. Okay, so they were 2-1 without him. So you knew that if you watched the NFL and you were like, deep into it, you knew if you looked at the Niners roster going into that year, you were like, okay, you're like, they have everything. They got Sherman, they got the quarterback, the line's good, they got Kittle, they have Emmanuel Sanders coming into the season. Or they traded for him midseason. Deebo Samuel and Jalen Hurd, they just drafted 2 really talented rookies. Their running backs are backed by committee. They're a Shanahan-led offense. All this. You knew they were going to be good, right? Mm-hmm. If everything could just stay healthy. And that's why a lot of people were like, my God, they got the number 2 overall pick. And they get Nick Bosa, and that's what puts them over the edge, right? So it's like the same thing for Golden State right now. They're going to give them the super high overall pick. And can you imagine if they trade for Giannis? So you're going to have Giannis, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green on the same team? How does that help
the league when you have 3 or 4 teams that have all this, and then the rest of them?
It's like it would be like college. Like every year, Alabama, LSU, or Clemson are in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. It's every year. LSU was a surprise this year, but every year it's usually always Alabama and Clemson for sure.
Right.
And then the Sooners have been there the last couple of years, and then it looks like Ohio State's going to go on a run for the next couple of years. So is that good for college football to have the 4 same teams in the playoffs all the time? You can say the same thing about the NFL. The Patriots were in the Super Bowl 3 years in a row. Was that good for ratings?
Well, really the college thing, it's all about recruiting. I don't think it's reflective of.
Yeah.
Certainly Alabama has recruiting advantages. Say like Northwestern or like Ole Miss. Like they have the best coach in the modern era, arguably, if ever. So some of these schools they just recruit themselves.
Well, it was something like between Ohio State and Michigan. It was like Ohio State had 66 players that were rated 4-star or higher, 4 and 5-star players, 68. Right. Alabama had like 71 or something.
And there's 85 scholarships.
Yeah.
So
Michigan had 4. Michigan, 4 to 5-star players.
Right.
And you look at and that's why this is happening. That's why Ohio State every year consistently, without a fail, dominates the Big Ten. Hasn't Ohio State won the Big Ten every year for the last 5 or 6 years? Ever since Michigan State went to the playoffs that one year when they had Bell and Kirk Cousins and all them?
They've been pretty dominant. It's either been them. Since, Penn State won it one year.
Penn State won it one year.
I think Wisconsin might have got one, but yeah.
Yeah, basically it's Ohio State every year. Okay, other than a couple of off years, it's Ohio State. Mm-hmm. Just like who dominates the SEC? It's Alabama.
Right.
And if it's not Alabama, it's LSU and maybe Georgia.
Sometimes Auburn.
So. And you really can't, there's no way to fix college football because you can't be well, you're only allowed this amount of, 5-star recruits because you got to spread it around. That's not going to happen.
Right.
But like the NBA we were talking about, the lottery I think is stupid because why shouldn't the worst team get the first overall pick? Yep. The Knicks and the Pistons were the 2 worst teams. Right. Why are they not picking in the top 3? Why? Yep. The Pistons are at 7. They were the 2nd worst team. That would be that's like the equivalent of, let's say the Patriots have an off year this year, and we know we know the Jags are going to be pretty bad, or the Bengals are going to be pretty bad. Let's say the Bengals and the Patriots both go 3-13, okay? I don't believe the Patriots will go 3-13. I think they're a 9-win team because of that defense and Bill Belichick. But let's just say for theoretical purposes, they're both 3-win teams. Now let's say the Patriots get the number 1 overall pick. You clearly know that they're a better team than 3-13. Let's say Cam gets hurt. You clearly know they're a better team than 3-13. And the Bengals are a 3-13 team and they need that number 1 overall pick. And let's say the Patriots pick at number 1 and the Bengals pick at 7. That's stupidity. That's stupidity. Why would the Patriots be able to get the number 1 and be able to get either Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence, and the Bengals are sitting at 7 wondering who's going to fall to them?
And I don't think Belichick will hesitate to go to that other guy. I'm trying to think of his name. It's not Brissett. He went to the Colts. Who's their backup? I forget. I know Brian Hoyer's back, but is there somebody else?
Jarrett Stidham.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Oh, if Cam starts playing bad, yeah, I don't think he would definitely put in Stidham.
So
but back to the NBA, like I said, the draft, they need to fix the lottery soon, one of these days. But yeah, my thing about Giannis and back to that whole series is that if they get swept, I mean, what does this say about Giannis? Like, does that affect his contract? I don't think so because he's proven that he's amazing. Okay, but is it him? Is it the Bucks team overall? Like, why? Like, and the Heat aren't a bad team, but they shouldn't be down 3-0 versus the Heat. We're talking about the Bucks here. Okay,
right.
I could see them maybe down 3-0 versus the Raptors, the Celtics. I could be like, okay, maybe that's justifiable. But the Heat, why are they down 3-0 versus them?
Right.
This isn't. You're not playing the 1995 Bulls, or you're not playing the 80s Pistons.
Yeah.
This isn't a super team. You're playing a good team, but they're nothing special in all them. And then way back to the Sixers when they had Wilt Chamberlain, and the Lakers when they had Kareem and Magic at the same time.
Yeah.
And then the Pistons when they had Isaiah Thomas and who else did that?
Dumars, Lambeer,
yeah.
Stackhouse, or not Stackhouse,
and
Rodman for a little while.
Rodman for a little bit, yeah. And then it was the Bulls when they had Rodman and they had Jordan, they had Pippen. And then it was, the Lakers for a little bit again when they had Kobe and Shaq, and then the Heat when they had LeBron and D-Wade, and then for the better part of this decade, it's been the Warriors when they had, KD and Draymond and Clay and Steph, and Steph was winning MVP after MVP after MVP, and it was like they just can't be stopped.
Is there a salary cap in the NBA?
I think so.
It's a lot. Couple of the teams like to they'll pay the tax. Right?
It's a lot higher than the NFL though.
Yeah,
like the NFL salary cap.
That's one way they could get around to evening the playing field.
Well, the NFL salary cap is like it's around $200 million right now, I want to say, and it usually goes up by about $20 million a year. Although they're saying this year because of the COVID, it's going to actually go way down.
Sure,
but or it might stay the same. I don't, depending on how the ratings do and how the TV is. Okay, but that's so that teams like, because if it was all based on like who makes the most money, the Lions would every year probably be the best team because the Ford, they can just basically print money. Jerry Jones with the Cowboys would be one of the best teams because he's a billionaire and is able to soak a ton of money into it because he's an oil tycoon. Gillette.
Steelers.
Yeah, the Steel. What does Art Rooney own? Again.
He's with the Steelers, isn't he?
Yeah. What does the Steelers own? Like, what's their? What are they in?
They're in partnership with Heinz.
Oh yeah.
Ketchup.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a big one.
I don't know. They just have a tradition that's built on loyalty, and putting the best 53 guys on the field, irrespective of who's a superstar and who isn't.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It was like
they all buy in.
If there was no salary cap, every year would be the Dallas Cowboys,
right? Because
they're the biggest sports franchise in the world. Okay. Jerry Jones can print money with his oil industry.
And you can argue against the salary cap because all you got to do is look at the NHL. You got like Nashville was in the Stanley Cup a couple years ago. Does anybody give a shit about Nashville, Tennessee hockey?
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah. Well, it would make sense to a point in the NFL because you could be like, well, Cowboys' biggest franchise. It hurts the NFL if they haven't been to a Super Bowl since 1995. Okay. Or 1996 or something,
problem for the NFL is the league it's not a problem. It's a good thing. It's designed on parity, meaning it's designed for you to be better and win and be competitive every single year. So the Lions continue to defy logic because you have teams that time and time again, like Carolina, they went 1-15. Next year they were in the Super Bowl. Jake Delhomme.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like
that's the exact thing. Is it's like the NFL and the NBA both. It's all about situation. Like, you're right. You can turn around. Like, the Packers were 6-9-1 one year, and everyone's like, wow, look. What do? They go in free agency. And that's why through free agency and through the draft, you're right. You can make a flip in 1 year.
Very quick.
Because it was like they went in free agency, they signed Adrian Amos, they signed Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith. They totally revamped their defense. In the first round of the draft, Rashawn Gary, Darnell Savage in the first round. Completely, there are weaknesses going into the season where linebacker, edge rusher, and safety. 2 brand new safeties, one of the best safety tandems now in the NFL. They ended up going from linebacker being one of the worst in the NFL to now probably the best edge rush duo in the league with Preston and Zadarius Smith. Fixed part of the O-line problem with Elton Jenkins, and then they go 13-3 the next year and make it to the NFC Championship game.
Right.
It's the same thing with the Niners, right? The Niners are 2-14 and go to the Super Bowl the next year. Yep. So you're right. It's saying that the what's it called? The Warriors are so bad this year. Next year they're probably going to right back to the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
Especially if they get Giannis.
With the top pick. Yeah.
Okay. With the top pick, or if they get Giannis, they're going to go right back. Okay. Yep. Everyone's saying that. So. And that's the problem with the NHL and really the MLB is it takes rebuilds in the NHL and the NBA take too long, I think. Because it's a lot harder, because you're right, there is no salary cap in the NBA and the MLB,
or
right?
baseball.
Or baseball, yeah. So guys stay with their respective team for a lot longer. You're not going to see Mike Trout leave his team.
No.
Look at the guys that have left the respective NBA.
If for no other reason, other teams aren't going to want to touch that contract.
Yeah.
So.
And like same thing in the NHL. You're not going to see what's his name for Pittsburgh, the Penguins.
Crosby.
You're not going to see Crosby leave his team, or who's the guy that plays up in Canada that's really good right now?
Connor McDavid.
You're not going to see those guys leave. Right. McDavid isn't leaving the Oilers. Yeah, and Crosby's not leaving the Penguins anytime soon.
Right.
Because they can it's the same thing in soccer. Lionel Messi, had he been in the NBA or in the NFL, I couldn't give him $800 million.
Crazy.
Okay? You're going to have a problem.
These leagues as a whole, I mean, it's of no good to anybody, for any team in whatever league, for them to suck. Because when everybody's good and competitive at a minimum, you have more money, you have more eyeballs, you have more opportunities to get your product out there, both here and internationally. And it's not good to have teams that are just lousy every year.
Yeah. Well, and I think the thing about the salary cap is that I think a salary cap is a good thing. Because you're right. If Lionel Messi was in the NFL or the NBA, he would have had to leave. He would have had to leave Barcelona. He would have had to leave his team. If there was a salary cap in soccer, Barcelona wouldn't be able to take him.
Right.
Okay. And he would have had to leave and go somewhere else and possibly create a super team, which, as much as people say they don't like super teams and dynasties are a bad thing, dynasties sell. Super teams sell.
Everybody makes money. There's competition. Capitalism. The
last super team we saw in the NFL was the 2013 Seahawks. And those were some of the highest rated games. Some of the biggest super teams. Rated games watched on TV. Everyone wanted to watch Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, Troy Aikman, Deion Sanders, and Charles Haley play. You just wanted to watch it. Yeah. Everyone wanted to see the Legion of Boom with Sherman and Chancellor and Earl Thomas
and everybody thought they'd be
Bobby Wagner. Yeah, but they weren't around forever because of the salary cap. Because how do you possibly pay for 4 All-Pros on defense, an All-Pro quarterback, an all-pro running back, an all-pro tight end? You can't do it.
Unless
There's only so much money to go around.
Their deals.
There's only so much money to go around, right? Like I said, because if you're bad in the NHL or the MLB, like the Tigers right now, it's going to take the Tigers 5 years probably till they're good.
At this point, they're going to be probably maybe 3.
Well, but I mean, it's going to be a 5-year rebuild now because they've already been bad for 2 years.
Yeah, they got some incredible arms now. they're actually ranked second in terms of in terms of how they rank their prospects. So they're getting there.
That's what I'm saying is that it's a 5 to 7 year rebuild in the NBA and the NHL and in pro soccer. It's a long time. As we're in the NBA and the NFL, you're right. You could turn around in a 360 in 1 year. Like we were talking about earlier with Manning and the Colts. They go from 3-13 to 13-3.
Right.
The flip can be that. A little bit about Celtics Raptors. The Celtics had a 2-0 lead over the Raptors in the series, and the Raptors came back and seemed to be firing on all cylinders the other night, on Thursday night. But they won a real close game, and they shot the game-winning shot to win at the Raptors. And I still think the Celtics are going to win this series. I think this is the Celtics series to lose.
Game 4 tonight, 6:30.
Game 4 tonight, 6:30. Yeah, I expect the Celtics to win. I think the Celtics will come back. I think the Celtics they're a deeper team. I think it's really close. I think both teams are almost exactly like each other. But I think the Celtics will win. Other NBA, Nuggets, Clippers, I think the Clippers are probably going to sweep them. Unless the Nuggets do. Unless they're able to capture some of that magic and, Jokic does really good and Jamal Murray unleashes more of his superstar.
Tonight at 9, Clippers up 1-0.
Tonight at 9. And we'll see. This will be a tell. If the Clippers go and they just destroy the Nuggets again, maybe then we'll be like, no, this isn't going to be as close. But if the Nuggets come out and win, and they win in a good fashion, then you could be like, well, maybe this could go into 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
But, Raptors, Celtics, and I think the Raptors are too good. We knew the Raptors were too good for the Celtics to just go and on a 4-0 streak. That wasn't going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I think this game will go into 6. I don't know about 7, but I do predict the Celtics are still going to win.
The other thing I was going to hit on for the NBA is respect to the superstar teams and having, 3 or 4, There's a scene in the movie Miracle. Have you seen that movie? It's about the 1980
Yeah.
hockey team. Right in the opening scene, they're talking about how, Soviets, they've won the gold, 4 decades in a row, and they haven't been touched, and, they're going on and on about, how can we compete with them and stuff, and, Kurt Russell, who plays Herb Brooks, is talking about how, they pretty much made a comment about how, we had our best NHL team play against them, and, they still beat us. And, under his breath, he says, it wasn't because you weren't good enough. And then everybody kind of stops and looks at him, and he comes back and he says, all-star teams fail because they rely solely on the individual's talent. And you pair that to where we are today in the NBA, and you look at, Golden State Warriors, yeah, they've won, 4 NBA titles in a row, but in general speaking, they were playing against LeBron James and, some side pieces. They weren't playing against a team that had 3 or 4 types of LeBron James to go up against that. And last year, you had Toronto with Kawhi Leonard. Lowry's a nice player, but I don't think he's a superstar.
Pascal Siakam's a superstar.
They had teams, they had guys on that team that knew their role. They were a collective team, and look what happened. So, I mean...
Yeah, well, they matched them. So
it's a catch-22.
Yeah, so Golden State had... had Kevin Durant played, it would have been a lot different.
Yeah.
But they had KD, they had Steph, and they had...
Clay got hurt, too. He tore his ACL.
Clay. Yeah. Well, I mean, had both teams been healthy, yeah, I think that the Warriors would have probably won. But I think the problem with the Warriors is that the Warriors were a very offensive team. Steph is a shooter. Clay is a shooter. KD's a put a bunch of points on you guy.
Right.
Draymond's a good defender, right? Mm-hmm. But they're a more offensive team. Like, they're going to drop 130, 120 a game.
Right.
Okay? But the Raptors were kind of the perfect team to go up against them because they're a very good defensive team.
Mm-hmm.
Kawhi Leonard, defensive player, probably one of the best defensive players in the game. He could match up against KD. Pascal Siakam, very good defensive player. He could go up against Steph Curry. Kyle Lowry was kind of their offensive guy that push back. So they were a good matchup to them regardless. But I think had Kevin Durant been in, they would have won.
When you bring up defense, immediately I think a defense wins championships.
Oh, of course. Of course. That's why Bucks killed the Broncos.
Yep.
The Broncos, they didn't have an answer. They didn't have an answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you looked at the game, you were like, okay, Manning hasn't seen a defense.
Something
like
was off early because the first play from scrimmage, the guy, when he hiked the ball and went to the end zone for a safety, so it's like, whoa.
I think the big question going into that game was, how are they going to cover all these receivers, you know? And if you looked at it, you were like, okay, well, Demaryius Thomas is going to get covered by Richard Sherman. That Demaryius Thomas is now gone.
Right.
Okay, Sherman, that was when he was at his peak, best cover corner in the NFL, him and Darrelle Revis and Patrick Peterson. He was gone, okay? Their next receiver on the other side was, I think, Emmanuel Sanders. Okay?
And they had Julius at tight end.
Yeah, Julius, and then they had Wes Welker in the slot.
Yeah.
It was, okay, you knew Byron Maxwell, Emmanuel Sanders, going to be a good matchup, but Maxwell will probably get the better. Sanders was early in his career. Okay. Welker in the slot. Well, Julius Thomas. You knew Bobby Wagner, KJ Wright, Malcolm Smith. One of those guys was going to cover, and all three of them were very fast. Wagner, one of the best linebackers the NFL's ever seen.
Cam Chancellor back there.
Chancellor, yeah. You knew that one of those guys was going to cover Julius Thomas. Peyton Manning loved to throw down the field. You know Earl Thomas was roving the back end of the field, okay?
Right.
The big question that everyone was saying was, how are they going to cover Manning to Welker? It can work, okay? If it's just Manning throwing dimes to Wes Welker, it's going to happen.
Right.
So the Seahawks said early in the game, we're going to send Cam Chancellor down. And they said this before the game. We're going to cover Wes Welker with Cam Chancellor. And everyone was like, oh my God, how's this going to happen? Cam Chancellor is more of a linebacker than a safety. He's a strong safety, but he plays more of a linebacker role. He can't cover Wes Welker. Wes Welker's going to destroy him.
Right.
It's going to be, they're going to have a 3-touchdown lead by half. And Cam Chancellor came in and said, the hell you're not. I'm an all-pro safety. I'm Cam Chancellor. I got wheels too. I'm going to come and I'm going to lock your ass down. And he had 2 picks, and one of which was a pick 6 by half.
Yeah.
So he could just completely lock down Wes Welker.
That was utter domination, that game.
They said the offensive line was supposed to be impenetrable. Well, Cliff Averill and Michael Bennett and Mebane showed that it was pretty
right.
penetrable. And the defense was supposed to be, the defense was that year for the Broncos was okay. They had Miller and Ware, so they were a pretty good defense. But they came in and said, the Seahawks were like, okay, we're going to run every play with Marshawn Lynch. Stop us.
Right.
And they couldn't do it.
And they also had Russell Wilson, too, just in case they
Russell
needed,
Wilson. And they play action off of that. Throw it deep to Percy Harvin or Doug Baldwin.
Yep.
The next time the Broncos went to the Super Bowl, how did they win that game?
Defense. They were able to get home.
The no-fly zone.
Yep.
Aqib Talib, Chris Harris Jr., Roby, T.J. Ward.
Was Bailey still playing at that point? Or
no, Bailey was... Bailey was on the team in 2013.
Gotcha.
He was on that team. But Aqib Talib wasn't, and Chris Harris was really young.
Right.
But yeah, so they had Talib, Chris Harris, best corner duo in the league. T.J. Ward and I forget the other guy, 2 pretty good safeties. T.J. Ward was a Pro Bowler that year. Von Miller was at the peak of his dominance. DeMarcus Ware was at the back end, but still really good. I forget who they had on the interior. Derek Wolfe was a really good player at that point. They had, I forget who at linebacker, but he just recently got cut, but he was really good. Another Pro Bowl season. The defense was stacked. And the offense that was when Manning was just a shell of his former self. But what did they do? They won that game because they went to the Panthers and they said, all right, we're going to shut you down, Cam. I know you're used to, throwing up 50 points and dabbing all over the place, but they shut him down. And Miller and DeMarcus Ware were flying off the edge, and Cam just wasn't used to it because his own line was supposedly, really good that year.
They kept him up all year.
Yeah, they kept him up all year, and Cam Newton finally found out what it was like to have 2 Pro Bowl defensive ends flying in your face. Yep. And he couldn't throw to his, he was used to having Greg Olsen, Oben, and and I forget who his receivers were, but and Jonathan Stewart was just rushing up the middle for all these yards. And
he opened himself up to a lot of criticism after that game because
he didn't jump on the fumble.
Yep.
And for a PR standpoint from Cam Newton, you know what? If he's thinking, well, I could jump on this fumble, but I got Miller and T.J. Ward's coming in ready to destroy me. If I get a concussion or if I bust a knee, this could be the end. And he was still on a rookie deal, and he was like, I'm going to get paid after this year. I just want my money.
Bad luck, though.
It's a real bad
the
look.
Super Bowl.
It's a really bad look.
And I'm talking about an exhibition game in August.
Yeah, a regular season game, even maybe if it was a wild card game, he would have gotten away with it. But in front of the Super Bowl, in front of 100 million viewers, he wasn't getting away with that.
Right.
Okay?
He's never been the same since. It screwed him up.
The injuries have screwed him up.
Yeah,
ever since, okay? He's been nabbed by the injury bug.
Psychologically, though.
He had, what was it, 2017, he had, MVP type year because he stayed healthy. And if his shoulder would have been fully healthy, he probably would have won the MVP.
Right.
2018, first 8 games of the season, he was next to Mahomes. He was going to be the MVP. It was Cam Newton. Okay, yeah. He was amazing, and then he destroyed his shoulder that night versus Pittsburgh, and just you could tell he wasn't the same. He couldn't throw 40 yards. Okay.
Right.
But yeah, I guess if we're gonna go into the NFL. Yeah, I mean, what were we talking about with the? Oh yeah, defense. Defense wins, right?
Defense wins championships,
and that's why that's why the Broncos won that year, and that's why the Broncos lost that year. Mm-hmm. A couple years before. But to the NBA real quick, I think it's going to end up being Celtics-Lakers in the finals. I think the Clippers are a good team, but in order for the Clippers to be really good, they need Paul George to be firing on all cylinders. And even when Paul George is firing on all cylinders, I still think the Lakers are a better team.
Right. I just think they have too many pieces.
Yeah, the Clippers are a really good team. They're a really deep team, but they haven't been able to stop LeBron anytime they've played.
Right.
LeBron, it's almost like that's the one game where him and Anthony Davis are like, we're going to rise to the occasion and we're going to show
They're going to be motivated.
Yeah, they're going to be motivated
for no other reason than because of what happened with Kobe this year.
Yeah, so. and the Lakers Celtics will be one of the most highest rated ever because it's the two biggest NBA franchises. Yep. But I honestly believe that the better games will be the Western Conference Finals with the Lakers Clippers. I think they could go back and forth, and that's going to go to Game 7. It's going to go to 7.
That'll be a fun series.
That'll be a really fun series to watch. Just like how a lot of people are looking forward to possibly seeing Bucks Celtics, but it's looking like it's probably not going to happen now.
Right.
But yeah, no, that's basically it with the NBA right now.
You want to touch on some of these contracts in the NFL?
Yeah, I guess we'll start with the NFL. We'll get to the contracts. Deshaun Watson just got paid, man.
4 years, $160 million.
How much guaranteed?
I know like he's going to make $39 million a year.
Well, it's 4 years, 160. But what you got to look at is the guaranteed money.
Right.
$111 million in guaranteed. Later,
crazy.
The total value at the end of the deal to be signed later Saturday is $177.54 million, with $111 million in guarantees, trailing only Patrick Mahomes with the 12-year deal. Okay, my thoughts on this. Everyone's going to think that the Mahomes deal is, whoa, that's just in a class of its own, which it is to a certain extent. But if you actually look at the Mahomes deal and the Watson deal, over 5 years, Watson's making the same amount of money as Mahomes is. Mahomes is locked into a 12-year gig with the Chiefs. He can't leave for 12 years. Right. Now, he's going to get close to $600 million, okay? I think $437 million of his is guaranteed or something like that. Mm-hmm. But if you actually look at his contract, over 12 years, it's very team-friendly.
Right.
Okay, because he's going to be... I don't think he's the highest paid quarterback on a year-to-year basis. And for 2 years, these next 2 years, he's still on his rookie deal, so they can still pay guys, for 2 years. Okay. But it's a very team-friendly contract, and it's a lot of incentive-based, but it's very team-friendly. Watson's contract I look at, and it's 177 over 5. These are the contracts that kill teams, okay? Because then you know that in 5 years, Deshaun Watson's only going to be 29. You're going to have to pay him again. Okay? Right. Unless if you want to keep him, you're going to have to pay him again.
And the market's going to be that much higher. Because every year they're going to jump the other guy.
Exactly. It's the same thing with Russell Wilson and Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz, if he stays healthy in another 3 years, is going to have to get paid again.
He's done.
I think he's done.
His knee is destroyed. They're out of their mind if they pay him.
Yeah, I think he's done. But Russell Wilson.
They got Jalen Hurts waiting. Yeah, I think they're going to go that route.
That's exactly what's going to happen. Yeah. We'll touch on that in a little bit. But Russell Wilson inked a deal, I think, a year or two ago for 4 years. So that means in 2 years we're going to have to pay him again. Right. And this is the height of his career right now. Russell Wilson is on top. So he's going to be 33 in 2 years. They're going to have to pay him again.
Right.
Okay, because now quarterbacks are lasting until they're 40, 42. They're going to have to pay him again.
Well, some of them, I mean. Yeah. Brady's an anomaly.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, The reason why the Mahomes deal is so team friendly is because 12 years, he's going to be 35 by the time his deal is done. They're probably not going to pay him again. They may give him another 2-year deal or another 5-year deal, but he's not going to get one of these deals again.
He brings 3 or 4 more championships. I think they'll give him whatever he wants.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think he will. Okay. But it's very team friendly. And Mahomes is doing this the right way because he's like, okay, if I don't want to be stuck in a terrible situation and then possibly risk getting cut. Okay? Because this is what Watson's going to go through right now. He's lost DeAndre Hopkins. They may not be able to pay Laramie Tunsil now. Well, they just paid Laramie Tunsil, okay?
They cut Lamar Miller. Was it last year or the year before?
Lamar Miller this year. This is his first year out. Okay. The Texans are now for 5 years essentially probably 30% of their cap is going to be eaten up by Deshaun Watson's contract.
And J.J. Watt.
And J.J. Watt.
Can't stay healthy.
Okay. Which when he's in, he's a monster.
Right.
All right. The reason why they had to get rid of Davion Clowney and DeAndre Hopkins is because they knew they were going to have to pay.
He couldn't stay healthy either.
Clowney, yeah. But the reason why DeAndre Hopkins was let go, essentially, if you look at it, was because they knew they were going to have to pay Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
And DeAndre Hopkins was going to ask for top receiver money like he should get because he's one of the top receivers. Okay. And they were thinking, we can't possibly pay a guy top defensive end money. That's almost quarterback money, $100 million. We can't pay a franchise left tackle, be the highest paid offensive lineman. We can't then they're going to have to pay Justin Reed a big amount of money, because he's a really good free safety. They were going to have to pay him one day. And they just said, you know what? There's a lot of receivers. You're just the odd guy out. I'm sorry.
Real quick on Deshaun. This is him speaking. As a child growing up in Georgia, it was always my dream to play in the NFL. Today, I couldn't be more honored and humbled to sign a long-term deal in Houston, the city that I've grown to love so much and now call my home. I promise to do everything I can to not only bring a championship to this great city, but also leave a legacy of helping positively impact this community. Now back to work. And then Bill O'Brien, who's the coach and also the general manager, talked about how, he says he loves the guy, referring to Deshaun. He's an excellent football player, but he's an even better person. He cares about his teammates. He cares about being as good of a player and a teammate he can be every single day. He tries to get better and better. He's improved every single year, and we obviously feel very good about him, and we're very fortunate to have him on our football team. I think having that position, as we all know, is very important, and we feel like we have an excellent player there.
And look, I love Deshaun Watson. I am all on the Deshaun Watson hype train. I think when it comes to young quarterbacks, to be honest with you, I may take him over Lamar. Okay? I mean, just because he gives you the running, but Deshaun Watson is...
Oh, Lamar Jackson.
He has a Mahomes... Like, his arm is like... Deshaun Watson is like Russell Wilson with an even better set of legs. Because people don't realize Deshaun Watson runs probably a 4.5, 4.6. Okay? So he doesn't have like Russell Wilson with an even better arm. Okay? Yep. That's what I look at him like. Deshaun Watson is a fantastic... Love the guy. J.J. Watt said that when they spent that year together rehabbing that he never met a better teammate, okay? They said he's a leader on the field, that he puts up great numbers, he doesn't put the ball in harm's way a lot, yet he also takes risks. He's like... Deshaun Watson to me has reminded me a lot of a young Aaron Rodgers, a guy who doesn't turn it over a ton, yet can make every throw, okay? And's got a set of wheels and can run. Great teammate, loved, young guy. The only problem with Deshaun Watson is he can't stay healthy. I mean,
they damn near beat the Chiefs too. Remember they jumped on him early.
Yeah, they damn near beat the Chiefs for sure. Yeah. And he plays a big reason in that. Yep. And I think, and my biggest thing on Deshaun Watson that I look at is like, he has that clutch factor. He rises to the occasion in the moment, and that's what I think. And that's my saying is that good players can play, but great players can play in the moment. Right? Because if you can't play in the moment, then I don't think you're a great player. Like MJ could play in the moment, right? There were guys that couldn't. There were guys that shriveled in the moment. To an extent, people say LeBron shrivels in the moment. I think he's, close 50-50. But, we'll see. That's what we're talking about. Giannis shrivels in the moment, okay? Manning couldn't do it in the moment. What made Tom Brady so good and what made Joe Montana so good?
Man.
The moment, It was when...
And he makes guys around him better.
Yeah. When Brady's down 28-3 versus the Atlanta Falcons, he said he rose to the occasion.
Yeah.
In the fourth quarter, he threw for like 200 yards alone in the fourth quarter. I remember watching that. It was my first Super Bowl that I ever watched front to back. And from that moment on, I was hooked. I was like, there's no other sport where you can do this.
No.
I was like, this is just sensational.
No.
Okay. And I remember watching that, and I was like, this is incredible. He's really going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I mean, again, the Chiefs, when Mahomes led to the moment, when he was down 24-0, and he came up and he was like, I'm going to win this damn game.
Yep.
We're better than this team.
Okay.
Okay.
It happened again when they played Tennessee.
They played Tennessee,
them,
yeah.
So.
When what's it called? But I mean, you saw him do it first when he was versus Alabama, and when he was at Clemson, when he made that goal line drive. You know, he's got that was on part of what Joe Montana did when he led the drive versus the famous drive versus the Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or the drive versus the Cowboys when he threw that game-winning touchdown to what's his name, Dwight Clark.
The catch.
Yeah, the catch. You know, or the throw to Jim Taylor versus the Bengals. Yeah, Deshaun Watson, I think when it's all said and done, has the potential to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think he's crazy. He's amazing.
He checks all the boxes. But
he's 24 years old.
Yeah.
You know, he's a superstar in the league. He's clutch. He's got everything you want. But can he stay healthy? He's already torn his ACL once, and he had the same issue in college when he tore his ACL at Clemson. If that knee can stay healthy, if he can be okay, and you know what? And he tore his ACL in 2017. In 2018, the first half of the season, he didn't look the same. And they usually say it takes a guy a year and a half to fully regain what he was from a torn ACL.
It's a head thing. Like, can my knee still take it?
Can my knee still take it? Like, you saw with Teddy Bridgewater, right? Like, in 2 years, 3 years since he played, his first couple games with the Saints this year, he was kind of skeptical. He was like, I don't know if I can run. And then near the end, you know, because he played for like 6 games or something, the last 2 games, then you saw what Teddy actually could do. Because he was like, okay, now I can run, I can throw, I can do this. I'm feeling it again. Yep. And that's what Deshaun Watson was nothing short of remarkable. He had a fantastic year. I think he's worth every penny. But my thing is, when you see quarterbacks on these deals where they're getting paid premium money for 5 years, you haven't seen one win the Super Bowl yet.
Right, here you go. Speaking of that, like, this is from ESPN. So it says this is on the money, right? Mm-hmm. Deshaun Watson will now bring in the second largest annual salary in the league behind Patrick Mahomes, who agreed to his offseason. Yeah. This is his new extension. Here's some of the quarterbacks. Mahomes, $45 million. Watson, $39. Russell Wilson, $35. Roethlisberger, $34. Jared Goff and Aaron Rodgers, $33.5. Now, it's interesting to note, Wilson, Super Bowl. Roethlisberger, 2 Super Bowls. Rodgers, Super Bowl. Goff, with the Rams, he got to a Super Bowl and lost. Mm-hmm. Watson, they had a real nice run here this last season. We'll see where they go. But
the thing is that while those guys weren't paid, since those guys have been paid, none of them made the Super Bowl yet. We'll see what Watson and Mahomes do. But since Rodgers got paid, what exactly has he hasn't gotten them to another Super Bowl. Roethlisberger hasn't gotten them to another Super Bowl. They've gotten close. You know, the Steelers got to the AFC Championship game. You know, the Rodgers got to the NFC Championship game. But I think it's been shown time after time that the way you get to the Super Bowl is a quarterback that's young on a cheap deal. Okay? I mean, and the anomaly is, you know, is obviously Jimmy Garoppolo was paid his money and he got to the Super Bowl. Okay? But that's how we were talking about the Seahawks earlier. That's how the Seahawks were able to build their dynasty. Lost their dynasty is because they were able to build it because they had a quarterback on a rookie deal with Russell Wilson. And once they had to pay him, all of a sudden they couldn't pay for Richard Sherman, and and they had to let go of Earl Thomas and Bobby Wagner. Bobby Wagner is still there, but Cliff Averill they couldn't pay anymore. Michael Bennett they had to cut. They lost a lot of pieces.
They regret letting Golden Tate go. Actually,
they thought they wanted to keep. They should have kept him around.
They wanted to keep him, but they couldn't because they were going to have to pay Russell Wilson. Yep. And look at teams get worse to an extent when you have to pay a quarterback like this. There are teams like the Packers did a really good job when they paid Rodgers. The next year they went out and they were able to get guys like Preston Smith, Zadarius Smith, Adrian Amos. The Chiefs were still able to pay Chris Jones and retain most of those weapons. Mm-hmm. Okay, the what's it called? The Texans, on the other hand, when they paid Deshaun Watson, look at who they had to give up this year. Mm-hmm. They lost Davion Clowney and they had to lose DeAndre Hopkins. Those are 2 big name players that they had to let walk because they just simply couldn't pay him because they knew they had to pay Deshaun. And I mean, I'm just saying, look at all the teams that you look at and you're like, they're the most talented in the league. Other than the Chiefs, it's probably the Chargers, it's probably the Chargers, the Ravens, and Cowboys. All three of those teams have quarterbacks that are on minimal deals. Lamar Jackson with that offensive line and that tight end and Marquise Brown and that defense with they used to have Thomas, but going into the season they had Peters and Marlon Humphrey at corner. They had Thomas and they had Chuck Clark at safety. And they had Calais Campbell and Judon and Derek Wolfe and Jalen Ferguson and Patrick Queen at linebacker. And then look at the Cowboys are the most talented team in the league.
Rookie deal.
Yeah, the Cowboys are the most talented team in the league. They got Dak on a rookie deal. And they got the best offensive line with Zach Martin and La'el Collins and Tyron Smith and Zeke and CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup. And on the defense, they got Jalen and Leighton Vander Esch. And, I mean, the list goes on. DeMarcus Lawrence, They're the most talented. They're the three most talented teams in the league, and what's the common denominator? Quarterbacks on rookie deals.
Right.
The one team the three teams that are the anomalies. The Packers have a really good. The Packers have a really good roster. Their quarterback's on an expensive deal. Mm-hmm. The Saints have one of the best rosters, and their quarterback's on an expensive deal, Drew Brees. But even his deal isn't that. It's more average now for quarterbacks.
And Green Bay has their insurance policy.
And Green Bay has Jordan Love. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's it called? The Chiefs, obviously, but they just paid for him, so we got to see who they're going to end up having to let go. Though it doesn't look like they will. And and the Niners.
Yeah.
The Niners paid. Okay. But again, the Niners, their defense is still young, so they're going to end up having to pay Bosa and Warner. They just had to let go of DeForest Buckner.
Right.
They're going to have to pay those guys. Lamar, they have to pay. I mean, Peters is going to want a contract. Humphrey's going to want a contract. Eventually, Patrick Queen's going to need one in a couple of years. Calais is going to end up retiring, but they got Matthew Judon. This is probably his last year because they're not going to be able to pay for him because they're going to have to extend Lamar. So I think signing a high-end quarterback like that, the two teams I look at as the example of why this could go drastically wrong are the Eagles and the Rams. Because what has Jared Goff done for them since he lost the super team? Because when they had Todd Gurley and when they had Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp and Brandon Cooks, I could have gone out there and been the quarterback. But all of a sudden, once they paid Goff and they had to say, Sullivan at center, we can't have you. The guard that they had to let go of, Pro Bowl guard, one of the best guards in the NFL. I forget his name. He signed with the Titans.
They cut Sue.
Yeah, they had to let Sue go. They had to let that guard go. So we're talking about the guard they had to let go. Pro Bowl guard, center, really good center they had to let go. And having to get rid of Cooks eventually. Todd Gurley they had to get rid of, more so because, he was hurt. Mm-hmm. Todd Gurley they had to get rid of. Sue they had to get rid of. LaMarcus Joyner they couldn't re-sign. Corey Littleton they couldn't re-sign. We're talking about 7 key players here. Now, they were able to get Jalen Ramsey and they had to pay Aaron Donald. We're talking about 7 really key players here who had Jared Goff, they not signed to that contract and said, you know what, Jared, we're going to franchise tag you twice. They wouldn't have been in that situation.
Right. Yeah, it's tough, man.
Yeah. So, I guess, since the season's a week away, we'll get into, team by team, maybe I'll do a little bit of pick 'em. Mm-hmm. So, what do you think about the Buccaneers this year? Good, or are they? Is the hype too much?
They're probably around 10 and 6.
I think they're
there,
10
9 and 7.
People saying they're going to be 12-4, 13-3.
No, not a chance.
Yeah, and my problem is the Leonard Fournette signing is really good. Okay, but my issue with the Buccaneers as a whole, and guys, look at this for fantasy value too, because when I do this, I always tie in fantasy football. Mm-hmm. I have Mike Evans in 2 leagues. All right, the problem with the Buccaneers is they're a team that is built to throw downfield.
Right.
Mike Evans is a downfield threat. Gronk is a downfield threat. O.J. Howard is a downfield threat. Scotty Miller is a downfield threat. They're built to sling the ball downfield. Mm. Okay. I don't think at age 43 Brady's going to go out there guns blazing, throwing 40, 50-yard bombs. That's not going to happen right now. Okay? I think the legit weapon for Brady will be Chris Godwin. However, I believe that Mike Evans and Godwin, and they're all going to have good seasons, okay? I have Mike Evans in 2 fantasy leagues. I think he's going to be all right because of the red zone targets. All right, but
I think people are devaluing, what went on in New England. I'm not even talking about the championships. I'm talking about
didn't look the same.
He had 20 years with Belichick. He had 20 years with his same old line, his same receiver.
Yeah.
Everything was the same. He parked in the same parking spot. He slept in the same. I mean, you're talking about 2 decades worth, 6 Super Bowls. He was in 2 or 3 others that they lost. So 953, and he's been in 9 of them. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think another problem with this year that's really going to affect him is the COVID thing.
Right.
They weren't able to have, usually quarterbacks, like they were talking about rookie quarterbacks this year and how rookie quarterbacks have a problem and quarterbacks that are under new systems. Mm-hmm. Usually you get close to 400, only getting like 130 reps or something in training camp. Usually they start training in like April and they start being able to go to the facility and work out and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And then they start spring training in like May, the end of May. Mm-hmm. That was all out the window this year. Right. They weren't able to work out. They weren't able to do any of that at the facility. They weren't supposed to, but they did meet with their receivers and throw and have some, scheduled workouts. But other than that, this has been really hard, and Tom Brady's talked about how he used virtual reality, actually, to get to know the Buccaneers offense.
Yeah.
Okay? But my thing is that, essentially, he started at the end of July, so we got a month. A month for Tom Brady to get ready. Now, he could have memorized the playbook, but if you play football, memorizing the playbook and actually knowing the plays on the field, especially if you're a quarterback, is completely different.
Right.
Because you can see that he's supposed to run a corner, but you don't know how he's actually going to run it.
Right.
You can see that the offensive line is supposed to be in a regular pass block, but you don't know the calls that they're supposed to make or this or that. This is all stuff. This is the reason why you get 500 reps going into the season in training camp.
You got to have chemistry.
You have to have chemistry.
You have to know, okay, if I'm supposed to run a flat and, there's an extra guy on me, I'm going to cut back.
I'm going to cut you here, yeah.
So,
and in the NFL, it's so much more complicated. Like, I play high school. Yeah. If the guy is supposed to run an out route, he's going to run an out route. Right. But in the NFL, it might say out route, but if you see the safety over here, he's supposed to go vertical. If you see the safety underneath, he's supposed to run that out. If you see the safety in the third, then he's supposed to run a corner. If the corner is on outside leverage and he's supposed to run a slant. If the corner is on inside leverage and he's supposed to run an out route. There's 100 different ways to go about it.
He has to process all that in a matter of 2-3 seconds. And by the way, he's got 4 D linemen at a minimum, sometimes a couple linebackers.
And he's one of the smartest players of all time. But I think the thing is, people are forgetting too is, did the Saints go anywhere in that division? Are they still there? Is the Falcons still really talented? If the Falcons can stay healthy, they're one of the most talented teams in the league, and they got more talented this year. Are they still there? They won 6 out of 7 games down the stretch last year. The Panthers look to be better with now new quarterback Teddy Bridgewater. Mm. They got to account for Christian McCaffrey. Right. People are forgetting the division they're in is not easy.
Right.
The NFC as a whole is really hard.
I think Matt Ryan's done. I think they should have addressed their quarterback situation.
No, I think I picked the Falcons to bounce back.
He's done. He doesn't have the arm strength anymore.
He's only like 32, 33. Well,
I don't know.
What I'm saying essentially is that, look, the Buccaneers, in order to get to the Super Bowl, have to get through the Saints in their own division. So they may possibly... Brady's always had a first-round bye, right?
More or less, yeah.
Yeah, and there's never been a time in his career when he hasn't had home field advantage in the playoffs.
Right.
This very well, okay? Because the Saints are going to win 12 games at a minute. The Buccaneers, you can't say that about them. You can't say they're going to win at least 12 games.
They'll be a wild card.
They'll be a wild card team, and that's what I mean. If you tell me that the Buccaneers are going to have to go to, San Francisco, or go to Green Bay, or they're going to have to go to New Orleans, that's going to be really hard for them. Because Brady, again, he's not used to playing on the road. He's only played on the road in, I think, 1 playoff game when he had to go to Kansas City. That was the first time in 8 years when they played Kansas City.
He played Manning in Denver 1 year, the year that Denver won it all.
Yeah, 1 year. Yeah. So out of 8 years or something, I'm sorry. No, he didn't play Manning in Denver. That wasn't in Denver.
Are you sure?
Because going into the game when they played Kansas City, New England had been on an 8-year streak where they have held a home AFC Championship game for 8 years in a row. Yeah, because the Ravens got past them 1 year, the Steelers got past them 1 year, and then the Broncos got past them 1 year. Yeah, so it was those 3 years.
Right.
Yeah, but they've held home AFC Championship games every other year. So now Brady goes into a season where a lot of people don't believe he's going to win the division.
No, he won't.
They won't win the division. The Saints are too good. I think they'll beat the Saints one time when the Saints have to come to Tampa Bay, but even that's going to be a stretch because the Saints are just too powerful everywhere. They have, the Saints. There is no weakness maybe other than cornerback, and they need one corner. Mm-hmm. They already have Marshawn Lattimore, All-Pro corner. They could use one more, and now they're talking about the Saints possibly. The rich just keep getting richer. Okay. And the Saints' offensive line is amazing, and it's deep, and the receivers are great, and they're deep, and they have the tight end, and they got Kamara, and they got Drew Brees, and on the Davis, and they got Cam Jordan, and now possibly Clowney, and then Sheldon Rankins in the middle, and then their safeties are sweet. You can't, there's no weakness. You can't be like, we're going to exploit this guy. That doesn't work.
Right.
So in order for them to get to the Super Bowl, they have to get past the Saints, the Niners, the Packers, the Cowboys, and possibly the Seahawks. I think the Buccaneers are good, but could they go to Lambeau and win in the winter? In January? Do I see them being a Florida team going up to Lambeau in January?
Well, that won't affect Tom because he's been through it all. So
the rest of the team it will.
Right.
The rest of the team it will. I don't think they could go up to Lambeau and win. I don't see them going to the Met. Well, you know what? If they play the Saints in the playoffs, they could win because the Saints have choked in the playoffs consistently.
They got screwed a couple years ago, but
I can't see them going to San Francisco and winning. I don't see them going to Dallas and winning. Hell, I don't see them going up to the Legion and winning.
If they let crowds in, and
but still, players defend their home turf regardless of the crowd, and they're going to pump crowd noise in. They want to defend their home turf because they're like, they drafted me here. This is my home. You play on the field differently, right? It's. The place. You're familiar with it, right? So that's Tampa Bay. I think the teams you got to watch out for this year, I'm telling you guys right now, my two teams that I think are going to go from being good last year to really good are the Bills and the Steelers. The Bills and the Steelers and the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys isn't a shock. The Cowboys isn't a shock, but the Steelers, I wouldn't be shocked if, the Bills, I wouldn't be shocked if the Bills won 12 games.
Ooh.
They're in a bad division. And they're in a bad AFC. Other than the Chiefs and the Ravens, it's a whole lot of question marks, right? So I don't know there.
Oh, that's a big jump for Josh Allen, though.
I think it could happen. They just got him Stephon Diggs. The defense looks good. The defense is really good. The offensive line's gotten better. I think they have the pieces in place to do it. The Steelers, if Ben plays at a high level and they can stay healthy and you get him and you get James Conner and the O-line regains its form and Deontay Johnson takes another step, which takes pressure off of Juju, and the defense plays like it did last year, they could be a 14-win team. But we're talking about a really, really talented team here. Because all Big Ben's got to do is just not throw interceptions, which he hasn't done.
Right.
Okay. The other team that I think is going to surprise a lot of people and is going to be from going really bad to being not necessarily a playoff team, but maybe 8 wins is the Dolphins. The Dolphins did a lot this offseason. And Brian Flores last year, considering they won 5 games with what I consider to be the worst roster in NFL history, is sensational. It's just sensational. That's a show to him, that he's a hell of a coach. He was able to win with the same thing with Mike Tomlin. Everyone on offense is injured, and he still won 9 games. Are you kidding?
I think that they're gonna take some time because I don't know how healthy Tua is gonna be, and getting hit by college players is a lot different than getting hit by NFL players.
Oh, for sure. So. But I think they upgraded the O-line with Isaiah Wilson and Austin Jackson. Mm-hmm. They definitely upgraded at quarterback with Tua. The receivers look good with Parker and Preston Williams, and then they got their tight end Gesicki, obviously. Running back's a bit of the question, but any running back will work in this day's NFL. Yeah. The secondary looks a lot better, and the pass rush. And look, all I'm saying is that I don't think the Dolphins are a team this year where you circle them and say we're going to win.
Right.
They could shock some people. But my 2 sleeper teams that I pick, one of them is widely picked. So the Cardinals, you guys already know they're going to be good. They're going to be all right. Again, though, my only thing in the Cardinals is they're in a very hard division. The Niners are still there. The Seahawks are still there. Those are going to be 2 at least 11-win teams. Okay, probably more. But my team that I think is gonna surprise a lot of people is the Denver Broncos. think the Broncos showed last year down the stretch that they were really good with Drew Lock as a quarterback, and they started to pick up a lot of steam, and they surrounded Lock with a lot of weapons, and the defense, second year of Vic Fangio. I think the Broncos could be really good, and I expect the Browns to take another step. I think the Browns vastly upgraded their offensive line, and Baker should have a bounce back year, and obviously I think the Cowboys should be good again. I mean, those are my teams that are going to improve. I don't think the Cowboys win 9 games again. I think the Cowboys win. If the Cowboys don't win 12 games, it's a disappointment.
Yeah, they should win the East.
They should win the East
I'm not sold
by a
on-
landslide.
On
Carson.
yeah. I
Yeah.
just don't think he's healthy.
Oh, that's my thing with the Eagles. That's what I was bringing up about the contracts. When they paid him, look at who they had to let go.
Right.
They couldn't pay these guys. But the Eagles have already been hampered with injuries. They're saying Brandon Brooks, the best guard in football, Achilles tear, out for the season.
Right.
Andre Dillard was going to be their starting left tackle, bicep tear, out for the season.
I believe Nick had another year on his contract when they beat New England, and they voided the deal or something.
Nick
Foles.
Oh, Foles, yeah. Yeah, that was another one. People look at Nick Foles and they're like, he was supposed to go to Jacksonville and be this great player, and he's supposed to go to the Bears and be sensational now. People forget that when he was in Philadelphia, look at what he had around him that year.
Right.
He had 4 Pro Bowlers on the offensive line, a Pro Bowl tight end, a really good receiver at a high peak Alshon Jeffrey. He had the best defense in the NFL. He was in paradise for quarterbacks.
Right.
You know, LeGarrette Blount and Jay Ajayi, 2 really good running backs who he could just hand it off to 35 times a game. He was in paradise for a quarterback. He's not going to get that. And I think that's why he looked so bad in Jacksonville, because he wasn't in paradise.
Right. Yeah, I mean, because you mentioned earlier about who they had to let go. If they would have brought him back, let him play that second year, maybe they could have got another one.
Maybe, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it was third year, you mean. He came back the second year. But I believe Jalen Hurts, and that's going to try to be their new Nick Foles.
Yeah.
The guy
he's
that-
definitely
'cause
the
they
guy-
know-
He's definitely the guy waiting in the wings.
And everyone's wondering, why did they draft Jalen Hurts? They have Carson Wentz. Well, that's the point. They have Carson Wentz. That's why they drafted him. Because Carson Wentz has shown, you're right, his knee's done. Ever since that 2017 year when he was supposed to win the MVP, he hasn't looked the same. Now, granted, like I said, he did have everything around him that year. And this year, now they're saying his top receiving threat, who was supposed to be Jalen Reagor, is going to be out for at least a month. Alshon Jeffrey's probably not even going to play this year. And Arcega-Whiteside was a huge bust last year.
So why don't we do a rapid fire? I'll ask you. We'll go by division, who wins and why, and who will be
Who wins and
surprised.
why? Okay.
Why don't we start AFC East?
AFC East, who wins? Buffalo Bills.
Surprise team.
Surprise team, I think it's going to be the Dolphins that surprise people because, like I said, I think their roster got significantly better. I really like their corner duo with Byron Jones and Xavier Howard. And he's doing a very Belichick thing, which build from the secondary and then go in. They have good safeties, I believe. I like their defense is going to be all right because Brian Flores is defensive coach. And the offensive line got a lot better, and I think they're going to rely a lot on the run game. And if you get a good Tua coming in, if we see Alabama Tua, there's no reason why they shouldn't win 8 games. But
Yes.
I also think that the Patriots, if they get a good Cam, could be a threat. But I think the Bills win the division.
AFC North.
AFC North is a really hard one. I think we could see 3 mark. The Texans, well, they didn't do anything to upgrade his O-line. He lost DeAndre Hopkins. The defense got worse. I don't know. Can Deshaun
Tennessee
carry him?
paid Tannehill, brought back Derek, what's his face?
Tennessee would be the one team that I think could legitimately win it. Because
Derrick Henry?
even the Colts defense is all right. The offensive line's really good. But can Phillip Rivers, is he going to be a turnover machine again?
Right.
I don't know. Okay, and they were really blessed the one year when they won it all with not won it all, but when they did really good with Andrew Luck. Okay, because he didn't turn the ball over a lot.
Right.
I think if I had to pick one, I would probably say it's going to be. I'd probably think it's going to be Tennessee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be interesting. We'll skip the AFC West, Kansas City.
Well, no, that's the thing. AFC West, I was going to say, Kansas City. That's a really talented division, and I think the Raiders could win 8 games. I think the Broncos are going to make the 3rd wild card spot, and the Chargers. Oh, do I feel bad for them? They were going to have the most talented defense in the NFL, and then Derwin James, their all-pro safety, who when healthy is one of the top 3 safeties in the league, tore his Achilles. and he's out.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be the Chiefs.
The post-Rivers era begins.
Yep.
Go to the NFC. We'll start with the East.
NFC East Cowboys win. I think there's no wild card teams in that division either.
NFC West.
NFC West, I'm going to hand it to the Niners, but I think that both the I'm going to hand it to the Niners, but I think the Cardinals win at least 8 games, and they're going to have a very powerful offense, explosive offense. And I think that I think it's going to be like last year where the Niners go like they win at least 12 games, but Seattle's going to win at least 12 games too.
Speaking of the West.
Yeah, and I think that Seattle's probably going to make a wild card spot for sure.
How about in the South?
South, I like I said, I believe the Saints will win the division. However, the Bucks will make a wild card spot, and they'll get one of the wild card spots.
And last but not least, the NFC North.
The North, it's the Packers division again. This is a fairly easy one, probably the easiest one out of them all.
What do you think about Minnesota, though? I like Mike Zimmer and Kirk Cousins. They're paying him a hell of a lot of money, man.
Minnesota, Ngakoue, I think Ngakoue was kind of trading for Yannick Ngakoue. I think it was kind of almost like what the Rams did last year with Jalen Ramsey. It was like a reach, like a last gasp, because they know their defense got significantly worse from last year. The safeties are good, the linebackers are good, the ends are good, but the meat and potatoes defensive tackles are not there. They needed Michael Pearson. He opted out of the season because of COVID. The corners, Jeff Gladley, do you want to rely on a rookie corner to be your number one? Mike Hughes hasn't shown much promise.
Right.
Okay, so the corners are a question mark, and you got to play Aaron Rodgers twice a year, and you know he'll expose bad corners. Okay.
Yeah, we know
the
that.
Offense.
We know that all too well.
They didn't do anything to upgrade the offensive line. They got Ezra Cleveland in the second round. Again, do you want Ezra Cleveland going up against twice a year Khalil Mack and then twice a year Zadarius and Preston Smith?
Right.
A rookie second round tackle? I don't think so.
Right.
Okay, you don't want that to happen. Kirk Cousins can't win a big game. What did he show? Last year, twice in Chicago, twice in Green Bay, division on the line, he goes 0-4.
Right.
Okay? He lost his deep threat, Stephon Diggs, who he loved to throw pretty deep balls to him. Lost him. Do I think Justin Jefferson's going to come in year one and post 1,200 yards? No, he's not going to happen. We haven't seen a rookie receiver do that.
Right.
Can Dalvin Cook stay healthy? Last year was really good for him. But what about the 2 years before that? Guy can't stay healthy.
Right.
If Dalvin Cook stays healthy, I think they're probably 9-win, 10. Other than that, no. I think they'll lose to Green Bay twice. I think they'll probably lose to Chicago twice because the matchup's really bad for them. They'll probably beat the Lions twice. But I think the Vikings make another wild card spot. But yeah, I mean, Green Bay's. I think they could again sleep their way to 11 wins.
I agree. I'll just give you mine real quick. I'll take New England in the AFC East. I'm not sold on Buffalo yet.
Okay.
I think you still got that Belichick
I
magic going on right now.
that. Yeah.
The North, I gotta go with Lamar Jackson.
That's my hardest division to
He's
pick,
a
the
superstar
East.
right now.
Yeah.
Ben, we don't know how his shoulder or elbow is gonna be. AFC South, you know what? I'm gonna go with. This is tough because I really like Mike Vrabel and what he's doing in Tennessee. I'm gonna take Tennessee to win that division.
Yeah.
Chiefs in the West. Go to the NFC. I'm going to take Dallas over Philly because I don't think Carson Wentz is the same player since he screwed his knee up.
For sure.
Obviously, it's Green Bay's division. It's always going to be until Rodgers is gone. And even then, they got Love waiting in the wings.
Now, yeah.
Although Stafford, the amount of money
A lot of dysfunction in the division as a whole.
Right. NFC South, give me Drew Brees. He's still there. He's king. He's going to throw for a zillion yards again.
This is last year, too. Expect some
His last
fireworks to
go-around,
come out.
no doubt. And then NFC West.
Stacked
I'm
division.
going Frisco. I think
yeah.
Seattle's definitely getting in the playoffs, but I'm
Yeah.
going to go with Frisco to win the NFC West. So
Yep.
we'll see what happens there.
Well, worst teams, I'm going to say the Bengals struggle. I'm going to say the Jags struggle. And props to him, 35 years old and still going strong. I mean,
Yep.
really, and that's a position where you just take so much beating and the shelf life. You're right, it's 4 years.
By the time you get to 30, you're done.
By the time you get to 30,
Most
he's
teams are
35.